Murphy sharing with
Deputy Catherine. Yeah. Firstly, let me say how glad I am that we're finally at this stage, that we're commencing the legislative process on this issue, and it's a testament to the dedication of campaigners, some of who've been fighting this fight for decades, that we're finally on the cusp of delivering comprehensive maternal and abortion healthcare in Ireland. The strength of the mandate given on the 27th of May leaves no doubt in our minds as legislators as to the will of the people. It was a two-thirds or more than a two-thirds majority, with just one constituency not passing the referendum. I think the process leading up to it was also very robust. From the Citizens' Assembly to the All-Party Oireachtas Committee, of which I was a member, I think, you know, the very fact that there was a comprehensive report delivered and that there was full sight of that by the public in advance of the referendum was incredibly mature and incredibly important. And in fact, I think that that is very much a product of new politics, that there could be such a broad cross-party make-up of that committee in coming to a consensus. In relation to the issue of pre-legislative scrutiny, and I've been involved in committee work in relation to pre-legislative scrutiny on other issues, it is not a question that pre-legislative scrutiny goes actually to the detail of writing the legislation. It will write the broad script. That is precisely what the All-Party Committee did. It actually did the work of what you would normally see as pre-legislative scrutiny. So I believe there is no deficiency in the legislative process in relation to this piece of legislation. If anything, it was more robust than you would see, and it had very public, had a very public and very well watched audience in relation to in relation to the work of the committee. But while today is an achievement of massive proportions, it would be remiss not to mention that there are some shortcomings in the bill. You know, and we welcome the fact that the Minister has allowed the amendments to be tabled. I think it's important that that is possible. I understand that the AG's office is responsible for drafting arrangements of the bill. However, I have to echo the sentiments of those who have expressed concern regarding the framing of the bill. Following a mandate which overwhelmingly sought to remove the stigma and criminalisation of women in this country, it is a shame that the entire first half of the bill is entirely preoccupied with the listing out of offences and penalties which may be faced. Experience and research both show us that the perpetuating of fear of criminalisation for the medical profession results in a chilling effect and makes medical practitioners fearful of their actions. This is not the environment we want our medical practitioners to operate in. I'm very glad to hear that Dr Boylan will take the clinical lead on the implementation strategy, and hopefully this will address some of those concerns. But I would certainly favour the reframing of the bill so as not to lead, so the bill doesn't lead off with the offences. The basis of the bill must be access for women who need abortions. Many interest groups have spoken about the ambiguity caused by the reference to serious health risks or serious harm. This potentially leaves definitions open to subjective opinion of individual practitioners, and therefore makes things still somewhat uncertain for women. Similarly, we need absolute clarity in relation to how the 3-day waiting period will operate. I understand from the briefings with the Minister that the clock will start ticking when the doctor certifies the pregnancy. But we have to factor in the potential difficulties it may cause. And I do remember because I remember actually asking questions of the people from Holland in relation to you know, when contact is counted from, and it was counted from because we were all trying to figure out how that would work in terms of people travelling to Holland from this jurisdiction, for example, and it was from first contact. And in fact, there was a lot of humanity in the thinking of that as well, in relation to somebody that would present with, say, a fatal abnormality. And indeed, what they wanted to do was give people time, not to feel that they were under duress or pressure. So I think it has to be, if it's to be included, it has to be included in a way that actually reflects, you know, what that experience was. For example, the bill allows for conscientious objection, so that if a woman, particularly in, say, a rural or isolated community, has a difficulty sourcing a doctor who will certify the pregnancy, given that we're trying to ensure that all abortions are not only rare, but performed as early as possible in the pregnancy, it's important to manage this aspect of the legislation properly. It is imperative that the legislation takes account of particular difficulties that may be faced by those, you know, non-city locations or non-urban locations, maybe. Those with difficulties or disabilities, for example, those who are in other ways already marginalised in society. And I have a particular memory of Professor O'Kane talking about somebody coming into her office who had, you know, a bipolar disorder and was, you know, very stressed, and wondered how that person was actually going to make their way home, never mind make the arrangements to go to another jurisdiction. So we've got to keep in mind there can be a broad range of people in different crisis scenarios that may not be just one crisis, but maybe multiple crises. Regarding the proposal for conscientious objection, I know my office has also raised concerns regarding the possibility of certain medical institutions opting out. Now, while the Minister has assured me that there can be no conscientious objection by institutions, I think it would be remiss of us to ignore the fact that certain boards of management could potentially instruct staff to adhere to internal regulations. We must ensure the legislation covers such eventualities. Other jurisdictions have also encountered the problem of doctors in public hospitals refusing to carry out a procedure where it will be free to the patient, yet offering the same procedure in private practice where the patient would have to pay. The legislation must be robust enough to ensure that scenario can't develop. Finally, Minister, I know it has been raised ad nauseam, but I must add the Social Democrats' voice to the calls for the definition of a woman within the bill to be clarified so as to be fully inclusive of all who identify as female or all who have a uterus. This must also take account of adolescent women and girls. And the Minister must examine the potential conflict between the age of medical consent and sexual consent. The World Health Organization are clear in the need for children's voices to be heard in the medical process where their body is subject to any abortion procedure. I believe this area needs more thought and clarity in the final legislation, and I have no doubt that this is an issue that will be raised at the committee and remaining stages. We in the Social Democrats look forward to working with all groups and parties throughout the legislative process to ensure that the final bill, when it passes, provides a best practice example of abortion healthcare in a modern, progressive society. Thank you.
Martin.